thank you for having me. My name is Nograles. I'm a software engineer with 352. I talked to you guys before we all started here. We basically do digital products, full stack JavaScript as well. We do Node.js in the back end. We do some microservices, and we're using React now, but now we're getting more into the React, or we're using Angular, but we're getting more into the React world now, especially with Angular 2. Just basically shouldn't even be called Angular at all because they just ditched all the code that we learned in the past 5 years, but because we I'm not venting at all. But anyways, excited to be talking to you guys about React. I know some of you guys have been exposed to React already, so there might be some review here. This talk is basically giving you a really quick crash course through everything from soup to nuts, React. What is it? How do you build components? And then we get into more of the Flux pattern and the Redux pattern. Kind of just give you guys like a whirlwind tour of what you can expect when you jump into this ecosystem. So with that, let's begin. Like with everything in the JavaScript community, it seems big things come from small beginnings, right? And React was no different. React, in fact, was built as just the V and MVC, right? You can see it on the Facebook page. Hey, we're just a V and MVC, man. Just don't bother with us. Don't hurt us, man. Just, we're not a framework. We're not gonna hurt anybody. But its claim to fame is really performant UI rendering, right? When it first came out, people are like, "Oh my God, this thing is so freaking fast." It's come to the point where people are like with Elm, people are writing games on React now, which is kind of nuts. I think somebody rewrote Duck Hunt on React Native, which is completely batty to me. Like, yes, well, how do you play that? Like, is that kind of unfair? Like, it's like nothing. Better be throwing like 1,000 ducks at me then. But that's claim to fame, performant UI rendering, and of course, plug and play to any framework, right? When React came out, they're like, yeah, plug it into whatever you want. Plug it into Angular, plug it into Ember, plug it into Meteor, anything. So it's basically. It's funny because it's almost like a Trojan horse kind of strategy that React does. It's like, hey, we'll just you'll fall in love with us, and then we'll get you into what really matters. So it's really simple to start. That's your basic. That's a hello world React component. Which, if you came from Angular 1, just to tell you what it would involve in Angular 1 to write a directive like this. Okay, so I would have to write a directive with a compile function, a link function. Am I going to transclude it? What the hell does transclusion mean anyway? Is it going to be an element attribute? Is it going to be an attribute directive? Oh yeah, I have to write the controller too. By the time I've scaffolded all that boilerplate, I already forgot what I'm trying to write. And this is just the front end, right? I'm just trying to present that data nicely to people. I don't even know what's going on. So obviously when you see like code like this is JSX obviously. So when people first look at this, they're like, ew, you got HTML with JavaScript, what's up with that? There's a Medium article that says it's like vegetables. JSX is good for you, and I kind of believe that. So we'll talk about what that entails. We'll talk about what this thing entails later. But basically, you're up and running in 11 lines of code. So obviously, people like me, lots of rejoicing. I'm like, oh, thank God, I can actually just focus on the stuff that I'm trying to present, information architecture, the things that matter. Because when you tell your product owner, yeah, I just spent like 30 minutes wrestling with the directive, they don't care. At the end of the day, they see just like a little box on the web page, right? So it really was very empowering going to React. And when I mean speed, I actually do mean speed. So I'm not sure if you guys caught this. This is run like in January of this year. The folks at Auth0, so they're OAuth as a service. So if you don't want to deal with Twitter OAuth, Facebook OAuth, you can just source it out to them, and they give you a nice API, all that stuff. So they know a good deal about UIs that load. They actually ran the DB Monster UI test, which Ember is very much known for. It's basically just modifying a lot of UI elements at the same time. And by every measurable standard, React is the blue guy on the far left hand, and then there's everybody else who tested on Angular, Ember, even like lesser known ones like Sido and Mithril. React kind of smoked all of them, and for the ones that it wasn't quite as good, the difference was so, especially frames per second, the difference was so minimal that you wouldn't even perceive it. So in terms of popular view rendering frameworks, React pretty much outpaces all the competition. I like this graph in particular, the major garbage collection, because you'll notice that the main outlier here is Angular 1. And I always joke with people saying that it's almost like Angular 1's like Flip Me the Bird for trying to test it at load, right? What are you doing, man? What are you doing trying to do DB Monster? But so let's talk a little bit about what makes this super fast. Let's talk about why it's so ridiculously fast. On the left-hand side, we got React. On the right-hand side, we've got Angular. So remember that HTML-like syntax that we showed you earlier, that JSX? So basically what that transpiles down to is a virtual DOM. It basically represents all of your HTML DOM in memory. And what happens is, whenever you need to modify any bit of that DOM, there's actually a very efficient algorithm that runs against that virtual copy of your DOM that says, okay, you only need to touch this, this, and this. So whenever something changes in your components, it says, all right, just touch these 3 components, leave everybody else alone. So it's really highly efficient. Contrast that with Angular. Angular does dirty checks, right? So dirty checks in Angular is basically two-way binding. They have to assign listeners basically for every component that you have to modify, which then basically the efficiency of that algorithm is a direct correlation to the number of inputs you have for Angular 1. So what is that? That's O(n), right? O(n) or O(n) squared, depending on how bad the digest cycle is. So it gets really bad to the point where even Angular says, okay, once we have like 4,000 watchers, this thing just starts to buckle under its own weight. So you can see just from pure mathematics why React is so much faster than Angular 1 is. When you have something like that, when you have something where you're guaranteed really fast UI rendering, we get to ask more interesting questions now. So now that we can guarantee that your UI, no matter what I throw at it, can render at a pretty decent speed, we get to question our golden cattle, specifically MV star. So, okay, MV star, philosophically speaking, will work great when we just had request response web, right? When we had an action on a controller on the server side, it rendered everything back in one HTML, then you can map everything to one model or one view model, works great. When we go to a componentized web where everything is partials, kind of turns into a mess, right? Kind of turns into kind of like a management nightmare. That's why you often hear people in the web saying state is evil. This is part of the reason, right? You oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, you're going to descend to something like this. And if you don't, you're basically doing a pattern I'm going to show you next, which is what React implements. So MV star, probably not a good idea for components, for a components-based web. So what does React do? One-way data binding, unidirectional to the rescue. So instead of having all those models and the spaghetti of view models and all that stuff, you basically have your view hierarchy composed in different components. When something happens, it basically is almost like a fire and forget. For instance, any action you take on a website, you need to filter something on a table. You got to log into something. You swipe left or swipe right on your mobile phone. It's basically just a fire and forget action. So it fires it and says, okay, I've swiped left, I've swiped right, I've filtered a table. Goes out here, you do some asynchronous actions. By the way, you can do any asynchronous action you want, going out to your web API, going out to I/O, whatever, what have you. Happens in between this bit here and the data here, which is your store or your reducer, if you're in a Redux world, is basically the one truth of your application. It's basically the thing that maintains all the state. Which, by the way, your view actually subscribes to that and says, hey, once you change, once you mutate. So what happens is something changes here. It basically sends it off back to the store or the reducer, and then the reducer says, hey, I changed, whoever subscribed to me, go re-render yourself. And that's exactly what this guy's doing. And round we go. Basically, it makes the application a bit more predictable. In more granular terms, that's kind of what it looks like, right? So for Redux, if you're using Redux, this is your reducer, but everything else is mechanically the same. Now, the super cool part about this, okay, it's a super clean pattern. It makes things way more predictable. You can pretty much have everything composed in pure functions that your view subscribes to. But the super cool part, at least in my opinion, especially for the past couple of years now with the whole JavaScript fatigue thing, is all this stuff, the zen of your application, your actions, everything, all the inputs, outputs, everything you do in your application. You would think this would belong in a framework, right? It doesn't. It's vanilla JavaScript. I mean, it's just vanilla JavaScript in Redux, which is really empowering because you know what? React is not going to be the hot front-end framework next year, probably, or in 2 years. So if you defend yourself with this kind of pattern, it doesn't matter what's up here. I can implement Vue tomorrow, I can implement Sido, I can do Mithro, whichever one takes off in the valley. So long as you have some kind of unidirectional pattern, you basically defended yourself against the churn that you see in front-end frameworks, which is really, really cool. We never had that before. Before you'd be on the framework, it'd be on an Ember or a Meteor, and if something new and hot comes out, it's a full rewrite. Well, the only thing you're rewriting at this point is just your view, the presentation of the zen of your application. So to me, that's very empowering. That's basically a huge selling point to me when I tell clients about React, saying, hey, you really can reuse your investment years down the line because this is just straight vanilla JavaScript and a lot of functional programming paradigms. So As if that weren't enough, React even doubled down. Okay, so they got the web now, right? So React's on the web, but they're like, you know what? Now, I want to be an iOS. Let's do some React Native. Literally, no more of that junk with PhoneGap or Cordova where it's HTML, CSS. They promised me 5 years ago, HTML and CSS will be as fast on native, if not faster. I'm like, guys, I've given you guys 5 years. I've had enough. So now that we have stuff like native scripts, stuff like React Native, stuff that transpiles down to native, we've got a learn once and write everywhere paradigm, which is actually a very distinct difference from what Cordova and Xamarin does, because their philosophy is write once, deploy everywhere, right? React, on the other hand, acknowledges the fact that every platform is going to be different. On HTML, you're going to be dealing with CSS, Sass, whatever, all the web technologies, Socket.io, etc. On native, you're going to be dealing with compasses, with gyroscopes, with whatever your provider is. It's basically acknowledging the fact that, okay, you're going to have to, we can get you there to a point. You can code the same style maybe like 70–80% of the way, but sorry, it's a different platform. It's just you're going to have to do something platform specific, and that's why your UI UX won't suffer in React Native. Oh, and by the way, not sure if you guys have kept up with F8, but it's also on Windows now. So we have React Native on Windows and Mac OS. So this literally is the year that React eats the front end. It's astonishing. So yeah, I posted that on Twitter. as soon as they announced it, I'm like, oh, this calls for Oprah. All right, but anyway, so enough of my babbling. Let's actually look at some React code and React Native and some Redux. By the way, feel free to lift it off GitHub. The entire solution is there. It's actually a series of multiple GitHub repositories. I've got some bash scripts in there that does all the cloning for you. So feel free. Feel free to yeah. All right. So here is my solution that I've got here. So let's see. Let's take a quick tour. All right. So nothing crazy here. I've got an API. I've got a Node.js API that just serves up data here. I've got a common library here. What I wanted to illustrate here is this is actually a Redux stuff. So I've completely divorced it away from your web, from your native. It's basically as if it were its own NPM library, right? So if you even look at the actions, it's basically just the pure functions you expect from Redux. Let me go over here. So yeah, so on and so forth. Nothing too nuts there. Again, this is just if you mess with Redux, this is just just your standard stuff. I got my standard reducers here for user and my index. I combine them, so on and so forth. So nothing crazy there, right? After that, we've got our web project and our mobile projects. Our mobile project obviously is in React Native, and we've got a web project here that just uses straight React using the patterns that Dan Abramov suggests in components, containers. Containers are your stateful components. Components are supposed to be dumb, and you just pass stuff through props. Nothing crazy. And what it amounts to is this really fancy React chain reaction application that we've got here. So all it really is just a fancy, let me see if it's actually still running, to be honest. No, it's still running. Okay, cool. Whoops. Localhost. Maybe I'm not running. Strange. Let me kick this out real quick and restart it. Yes, yeah. If you do React Native, you'll see a lot of that red screen, by the way. There, it starts good. Cool. There's my unit tests. There goes iPhone. What's going on here, friend? Okay, mobile's good. That's good, that's good, that's good. Sorry guys, technical difficulties here. I seem to be having some trouble with my web app.
There's a port on that first tab. Was that for something else? It was like 1.3 something?
Yeah, it was
something.
lead. 1.337.
Oh, this one is from my API actually.
Okay, great.
So,
Okay.
yeah, nothing nutty there. I wonder if it's actually, oh gosh, you know what? I'm an idiot, guys. I reference Material Design Lite on the web. Let me connect to my phone. That's what it's trying to connect to. So I'm using Material Design Lite in case anybody's curious. and I'm referencing through the web. So I'm connected to my phone now, so everything should be all good now. There you go. Yep, that was it. All right, so what it amounts to is basically this fancy application. All you have is a login screen. Let me put up my Chrome Web Dev so you guys can see all the Redux action under the hood. So let's scroll down. Let's type in my email address. So you can see all of my states being managed there by Redux. Nothing crazy there. I log in, and I basically have this area. Oops, sorry. This area here where it's just, login screen and where you're authenticated, you have a dashboard or something like that, right? And then same thing with your mobile application where, let me refresh this guy. So again, this is just native applications compiled using the same thing, by the way. Let me actually do a splitsies here so you guys can see some of the Redux stuff going on under the hood. Hope this translates okay. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of hard to see, but same kind of thing, right? Yeah. Same exact code I'm using. Hit enter, it's got its own authenticate area, nothing nuts, right? Let's walk you guys through like maybe a feature implementation, right? Let's say for the sake of argument, I don't know, on my dashboard there, I want to display a bunch of memes. I have a bunch of memes I want to display there, and also my my mobile application. Let's do that. I actually have a branch here. I'm going to exit presentation mode. So let's go over here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to shut off my API just so you guys can still see that, right? The code?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so on the API, we got controllers, nothing crazy there. I got a Twitter controller and a user controller. If I do a git checkouts feature meme machine, cool. And the only difference there is I've got a meme controller now that spits out an array of memes, and I want that to display on all of my multi-platform universal JavaScript applications. So okay, so that guy's up. Let's run you. Same thing with the old Redux store here. So you see right now we just have a simple nothing there with memes yet. So let's actually do a git checkout of that guy and then run it again. Git checkout machine. There you go. And then here you'll start seeing stuff. You have a reducer there for memes now, and then it basically just goes out. We have an API service here that calls out to it. Gets it from the API, and then we'll be serving it up, right? So all good there. We're done there. So we'll run this guy. We'll compile all of our Redux stuff. Now let's actually see it on the web. Let me actually start this guy up again. And let me start this guy up on the mobile side. Yes, we can. Cool, so mobile is running, web is going to be up shortly. There's my mobile. And then let's actually push it up onto my mobile, my web. So now we have a Redux store that serves up all this information. We have the API that serves up all the memes now. Let's say I want to do it on the mobile side first. So right now the mobile side, I got nothing crazy in there. All your source code is going to be here. Nothing there with memes yet, so let's do a git checkout feature meme machine. Cool. And then you'll see we got the memes now implemented as part of our mobile. And it's pretty much React code, nothing too nuts there. We're basically just serving up the images as
Good
different
evening.
memes.
The library is closing at 8 p.m. If you would like assistance completing tasks, any staff members are happy to help.
That,
If you need to
is that
contact
the
somebody to pick you up, you may use the phone as a reference desk.
is that the wrap it up music like from the Oscars and stuff? All right, so mobile's serving up the memes now. And then let's do this for the web. Feature meme machine. And on the web, it's going to be the same kind of thing. If you go on the website, there's nothing there with memes yet. There's no components there with the memes. If I do check that guy out, now we've implemented memes. It'll be served up in our dashboard. And there it is. There are our memes right there. So everything's modified now. Start.sh. Off we go. Let's see the mobile guys up already. okay, there's our web. Let me move this guy over again so you guys can see. So there's chain reaction. Let's sign in. There you go, I got memes. And same thing with my mobile. The mobile one is not styled because I kind of suck with Flexbox, so I have to apologize. But I did kind of stack them on top of each other. But yeah, that's basically, they're using the same exact code base. They're using the same exact Redux reducer, the actions, all that stuff. Really, the only difference is your platforms are going to be different, so your templates are going to be fundamentally different. In fact, let's even compare some code while we're at it. So here's the dashboard for the web, right? So it's simple HTML. And if you go into the mobile and I go to the same thing, I have a dashboard container there. It's going to be sort of similar if you look at some of the stuff we have here. So let's do a split seas. Let's move the mobile to the right, and then we've got web on the left. Right? So if you look at it syntactically, you're basically writing sort of the same thing, except you're referencing different things. Obviously, React Native, again, is going to be specific to React Native, so you're going to have specific things to React Native, such as different controls. However, here on the left-hand side, we're using straight HTML, so we have JSX style syntax. Over here on the right-hand side on the mobile, they have inline styles, which you can actually use in just pure JavaScript functions, or you can have literal JavaScript literals, which actually, by the way, the design part of this, the styling of this, is all pure Flexbox. So if you have designers who are well-versed in that whole paradigm in the web, it's actually pretty easily transferable. We did my friends and I did a quick application. All he knew was Flexbox, and he was able to pick up React Native within like a matter of like a week. So it's kind of batty. Like they've done a good job of implementing stuff that we're already familiar with, but trying to get you into the whole React paradigm. And you can see here, it's basically like JSX style. So we have a scroll view, a welcome message, and all my memes, versus the stuff over here on the web. But if you look at the stuff they call, it is the same exact things. I'm refreshing memes. I am common actions find memes. I'm logging out. I'm finding memes when I mount. So it's the same exact code base across everything. And the cool part is it's not framework specific. It's just vanilla JavaScript. So that to me is very powerful. You're able to do more with less with React. Once you actually distill all the behaviors of your application in that whole common library with all your Redux, all your pure functions, go to town with whatever platform you want. You can probably write a quick Windows application too if you wanted, if I owned a Windows machine. So, so that's really the power of React. It's more than just a Vue library. Although I will say, just to wrap up, React is kind of unique in that it's the first JavaScript framework whose opinion is you don't actually need me. Like, you always get tied in with these JavaScript frameworks, but in fact, React, all it says is, hey, attack this with a pattern. We'll give you guys like really fast, really super efficient rendering on the UI side, but really it's not a framework, it's all just JavaScript. It's all just vanilla. So just attack it with whatever you've got. We will make it, React basically just says you will want me though, because you're gonna do way more with less code on React. And finally, be reactive to change. Again, because you're attacking things with patterns versus frameworks. Again, if I have to switch out React next year for the new hotness that all the designers hop on, it shouldn't be a problem so long as it accepts that sort of one-way data binding and so long as it's as efficient as React. And as a matter of fact, you'll even see some of the UI frameworks that are coming out of the framework, like Cyto, like Vue, like Mithril. Same kind of thing as React, actually. Virtual DOMs, they're just composed a little bit differently. They might have a more functional style, for instance. So it basically ensures a level of future-proofing for you. So I told Tony this. I just want to shamelessly plug this. We just started a React.js Time of Day meetup. If you guys want to meet us up, literally just 24 hours ago. I literally just started the meetup. You'll see founded April 25th. So our goal there is going to be to level up everybody, get people really familiar with React, kind of share the different patterns we've learned from different implementations, and kind of level everybody up, because it's really exciting. I mean, just to give you a brief rundown of companies in the Valley who've already jumped whole hog into React. Obviously, Facebook's got some of their stuff in Ads Manager. Instagram, Airbnb is on React now. Netflix, all of their TV UI is now on React. Pretty much everybody has kind of switched to this pattern, this more functional pattern. and used React as a primary weapon because it's so widely adopted. So, maybe it does stick around for a while, maybe it doesn't. But at the end of the day, just learning the patterns within the React ecosystem will actually help you in the long term, because then you can kind of jump from to whatever you want from that point on. So I'll take questions now, guys. Anybody have any questions about? I know we cannonball through that in I condensed literally a 40-minute talk into 15 minutes, so I apologize.
I assume it's cross-platform, but how does it work with Linux pretty much? Is it pretty good?
Pretty good with Linux, yeah. Actually, it's better support in Linux than it is on Windows. So
For GUI or for like you can now write native apps for Windows and Mac and stuff, but is there actually a thing to do that on Linux?
Oh, not on Linux. So if you're going to program on the platform that you want, you're going to be, if you want to write a Windows application, you're on Windows. If you want to write an iOS application, I still need my Mac, that sort of thing. So, but yeah. Windows just came out literally the last month.
Right,
So.
but there is no Linux native version of React, right? I mean, all of the development tools are easy to install on easier,
Yep.
just Node and whatnot.
Yep, just Node basically. Node and NPM, and then you're up and running. So yeah. Any other questions, guys?
So have you worked on many projects that are cross-platform? Obviously that was cross-platform. but-
Yeah, the extent I've got experience in is probably Ionic. So, and that was kind of a bad experience for me, just because the UX was pretty terrible. Like all the tuning of CSS we had to do just to get it to behave kind of native, was pretty bad. So, but yeah, primarily I play mainly in web, and I've just gotten into mobile because of Ionic and because of React Native. Actually, it's funny because I got into React Native and now I know a whole lot more about Objective-C and Swift than I can, because they make you do stuff that's platform specific. It's like, oh yeah, you got to throw this in, in your Xcode project, throw this in for logging, for instance. I had to install some Twitter logging on there. I had to dive into Xcode. And that's cool. I think that actually, that strikes a happy medium, because it forces you to learn a bit more of the platform while still kind of staying in your comfort zone if you're a JavaScripter like me.
So would you, if you're booting up a new project right now, would you maintain some kind of separation between your platform-specific code and your kind of core? Like even if you're just starting with the web, you're gonna keep, okay, this is my non-web specific.
I would. It depends, because it does add a layer of complexity when you do split down into its own library. So usually what I do is I usually start it off in if I'm starting with one platform, I still keep it within the same project, but I structure it, I compose it in such a fashion that if I just need to strip it out and throw it into its own library, that's what I end up doing. So, yeah. Yes?
I'm wondering what it would take to convert from a Angular 1 code base to React. Do you have to scrap it? Or?
Yeah, there's, well, actually, interestingly, you can kind of dip your toes into React without going full whole hog in Angular. There's a component called ng-react. So it actually literally maps, so all the state stuff, what's all this junk here? So all the one-way data flow here, basically your store becomes your Angular component. All your state management becomes your Angular component. Let me put this up. Come. Yeah, so basically, ng-react allows you, basically treats your Angular as this. And then you can kind of compose your React components as you see fit, just to kind of get your feet wet, to get you familiarized with it. We have done it. I've done it in one project, because we had this one huge grid that we had for some god-awful reason. My client wanted to display 50 by 10,000 rows, something like that on the page, which is hilarious. We tried an Angular 1 and it just croaked. Angular 1's it's like it crashed my Chrome. We threw it in React just to prove it out. And React actually rendered faster than the browser could render on the screen. I'm like, whoa, it's actually, wow, that's not React, that's the browser trying to render itself. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. So you can try, if you want to dip your toes in it, try ng-react and see if you like it, see if you like the ergonomics, and then kind of go from there, I'd say. But yeah, if you want to do a full transplant from Angular 1 to React, yeah, just go full on, rewrite, if you have that luxury.
There was a really good talk at React Europe last year called rewrite React, and it basically kind of talked about your application as these branches and leaves kind of thing, and introducing React kind of at a leaf level, and like kind of growing it up from the outside.
Like a good
Oh, yeah.
cancer.
Like,
Yes.
Like,
Like a really good virus.
I think
so
it was a really
rewrite it
good
as
talk.
you go,
You
so
should-
you can.
I think the speaker was Ryan Florence. Yeah. So if you want to Google him, he's actually one of the core authors. He's like pretty big in the React community. He's one of the core authors of React Router, which is kind of like a router implementation that they have for managing like URLs to stuff on the page.
Ryan Florence,
Ryan's Florence.
Euro.
Don't rewrite React.
Yeah, and he wrote the, if you want to do like full SPA framework, kind of like how in Angular, you know, you have like UI router and stuff like that. Yeah, he wrote in React Router. There was some drama there like 3 weeks ago with React.
Yeah, they made a
Router.
fork and then
They
they're
came
like,
back.
oh, just kidding.
It was like a micro IOJS.
Thanks.
Any other questions, guys? Yes.
So at 352, do you guys use like an internal boilerplate when you start React projects? Like what's the...
The only boilerplate, so they had me kind of developing, because I've kind of dove whole hog into React before the company did, and I finally just convinced our leadership, like, hey, guys, this is not Angular, no, bad, Angular bad, it's gonna be bad for us. So I think it's best if you learn from the ground up, to be honest, because I think that's a philosophical difference between React and Angular. Angular, you know, you get the whole jungle, when all you wanted was, like, I just want that tree right there.
But-
So.
Although just to get that stuff running, you needed, you know,
A
you had
webpack.
that like 8-line hello world, but to get that to actually compile into something that could run into the browser,
Yes.
you had to
That's
set up all of
Webpacks.
Webpack and, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was going on. So like in terms
It's a
of
huge
like
freaking pain in the
the,
ass
you know,
to get
scripts,
started the first time.
Are there like recommended, like, I know there's no build process that's for React, but is there like a preferred NPM script to run?
Like I said, Webpack.
Webpack.
Right now, the community seems to be leaning towards Webpack. So we use Webpack. We've got a baseline Webpack that basically says, okay, you install, you know, Babel and you set your presets and all that stuff. But yeah, once you set it once, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of boilerplatey, but because you know, not all browsers support all the ES 2015 stuff that we just showed there. So, but once you get it up and running, it's actually I had my hesitations about, you know, Babel, but having worked with it now for the past year, I think I'm a believer now. I'm like, all
The
right.
library will be closing in about
I know.
6 minutes.
Oh,
If you need help completing your tasks, we'll be happy to assist.
Ready to help.
Need some help?
Can you teach me React?
In the next 5 minutes.
We're hoping to.
That's great.
If it's worked well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, come join us for our meetup though. If you guys want to do a deeper dive in React, we're going to come up with some sort of curriculum. You guys are more than welcome to join. We're going to be hosting it at 352. It's on Kendi across from Westshore Mall. So if you guys got some time, we'll have the schedule up by next week. We'll probably have like the next 3 months up, and then just let us know. And definitely throw me some ideas about like what you'd like to learn specifically, so we can get some speakers in to do some of those talks for you guys. We want to get more.
Is that what you're doing?
Mhm. And we want to do more hands-on too. So if you guys, we want to do more like a pure labby type stuff there. So definitely bring your Macs and your computers and all that stuff.
Do you know what your schedule will be? Like, is it like a monthly thing?
Be a monthly thing initially, yeah. I'll be sure not to schedule at the same time as before.
Oh, nice. Yay.
Especially towards the end of the month, though, if you can.
End of the month, all
There's a lot of
right.
stuff at the beginning of the month.
Sounds good.
I don't know how people.
Him and Joey would know about all the meetups that go around.
Yeah, well, I've seen Joey in all the Agile meetups.
Yeah.